with QSR Magazine, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar titled Data-Driven Decisions via Survey Technology. Harness the power of data-driven decisions for your brand's multi-site program initiatives. Discover the impact of quality site data, current technology, and data trends that eliminate uncertainty and guarantee accurate program decisions. Sevan's cutting-edge restaurant experts who have surveyed over 1.5 billion square feet of sites will share strategies to maximize your multi-site outputs, then glimpse into future restaurant rollout tactics. Amplify your decision-making with Sevan's expertise and survey and technology capabilities. During this webinar, Sevan will discuss the power of quality data so you can confidently make current and future projects efficient, how to leverage field data and optimize your programs, how to tackle important decisions with the right site data, and to look ahead and plan for future data and survey technology trends that impact restaurants. Before we dive in, just a few housekeeping notes. First, a recording of this session will be linked at qsrmagazine.com, and you can also use today's login link for on-demand viewing. Second, slides for today's program are available for download using the resources widget on the webinar console. And finally, we will be answering audience questions at the end of the program, but please feel free to submit a question at any time. Today, our featured speakers are Jacqueline Loftus, Business Development Director at Sevan, Shiron Olson, Vice President Operations at Sevan, and Damien Kresbach, Operations Director Survey at Sevan. From here, I will turn it over to them to get started.
Great, thanks so much, Kara. I'd like to introduce the team that's going to be speaking to you today regarding survey and data analytics. I'm Jacqueline Loftus. I am the Director of Business Development, as Kara introduced me as. I've been in the construction industry for about 20 years with a background in retail, QSR, and petroleum. Shiron Olson, she is our VP of Operations. She's an experienced project manager with working with several different verticals, including QSR, retail, petroleum, and C-store. She is based out of Northern California. And Damien Kresbach, he leads our survey and data analytic team, and he resides in Colorado and has 3 little boys. So super excited to share our insight with you and how surveys might be able to help you with your next initiative and program. Just a little bit of background regarding Sevan. Sevan is a program management firm with our own W-2 employees around everything that you see here outlined. So obviously today we're talking about survey, but within that, we do civil zoning and permitting, surveys and facility assessments, architecture and engineering, construction services, and real estate and development. On the left, you'll see some of our current restaurant clients. And if you go to our website, we have our whole portfolio of who we're currently working with. Some milestones regarding Sevan and what we've done. This kind of outlines all of the restaurant refreshes, the retail rebrands, the how many 1.5 billion sites surveyed, and again, all within our W-2 employees. Damien's going to go more into actually everything that we do within surveys, but having control of doing our surveys with our own employees is what really helps create that speed and scale, making sure that your future projects, rebrands, refreshes, and initiatives have the right information so that your projects are done on time and on budget. This is an outline of the agenda for today. So we're going to talk about the power of quality data, confidently making current and future projects efficient. When you think about any new initiative that you're rolling out, whether it be a multi-lane drive-through, digital menu boards, remodeling kitchens, front of house, back of house, it all starts with survey. And if you don't have that right data at the beginning, as we all know, that can cause major delays in these projects. So Damien's going to really go deep dive into what Sevan can offer and what you should be looking for when you're thinking about partnering with someone for your surveys. We're also going to touch on understanding how to leverage field data and optimizing your programs, how to tackle important decisions with the right site data, and then looking ahead and planning for future data and survey technology trends that impact the restaurant, which all of these things really play a huge part in making sure that your projects are done correctly and again, finish on time, which is a big factor for all of us. I'm going to turn it over to Shiron, who's going to kick us off.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Shiron Olson. I'm going to start out a bit of the presentation on the power and the value of getting quality data, looking at it from the survey space. So first of all, when we say what is quality data, I'll say what is high quality data. So high quality data is making sure that we have accurate, reliable measurements of the space, features, conditions, and any special situations we need to take into account as we're going into the life cycle of a project. We want it to be that single source of truth for all parties, all stakeholders. So as we move from the planning stage to the construction stage, and even into the maintenance when a project is completed, we can make sure that we have an accurate base of information that we're all relying upon. So that's really, what high quality data is. So next is sort of, what happens if we have low quality data? So what's low quality data? So low quality data could be inaccurate measurements. We have gaps in information. We might think that something is there when in reality it's not. So there's an assumption that might be made. So those are all examples of low quality information that could be coming in. So what happens if low quality data is used even before a survey or for a planning of a project? What can happen there is we can have misaligned plans, poor decisions. We don't want to plan a program based on what we think is there. We want to plan it on what actually is there. So we don't want to go down that wrong path. If we have low quality data, we might be seeing high cost change orders during construction. So I'll have a case study later that'll really highlight this impact, what happens when you have good quality data. But low quality data, misinformation, you don't know until you get into construction the problems, and then during construction is the highest cost you're going to pay for that. You can't plan for it, and it'd be much cheaper if you would know that on the front end. Low quality data, you're going to have some material cost issues. Either you've overestimated how much material you need for a project, so you get during construction is wasted cost, or the other side is you don't plan for enough material because you have poor information coming in. And so then you're during construction, you have a problem, you need more, and you're having to pay expediting fees, again, delaying the project and increasing the cost. And low quality data, you just have poor customer experience, customer dissatisfied. We want to be making the right decisions for the end user and the end customer. So want to have that good information coming in the beginning when we kick off a program. So our industry, we're all under pressure, more efficient, more customer focused. We want to get it right the first time. So quality data coming in, properly planning for it reduces the amount of duplicate work going on. So now I'm going to pivot to, instead of poor data, now what happens when we have good data, good quality data. So good data coming in means we talk about that single source of truth for information. We have accurate information that lets us have good preliminary layouts, good construction plans. Those construction plans need to be relied on by outside vendors, need to look at them, outside agencies, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, your contractors. All really important that we're all looking at that same base information about a space. And reducing potential for errors, those change orders I spoke about, really important to get that information right in the beginning. And then clear direction for the construction of a project, quality data coming in, proper planning, giving clear direction to all parties on the exact scope of work based on reality. Sometimes on construction plans, we'll see things that might say field verify. Well, that can be a very expensive word in some plans. And so if we see field verify, that typically means that something wasn't known at a certain period of time. So the more advantageous situation is planning ahead, pulling that data, ideally from a survey of a space, and building that into the planning process and not having it come up during construction. That customer satisfaction, reducing the unknown. We're already investing a lot of time, investment, resources on a program. Last thing we want to do is go back twice and repeat work. So power of quality data is you're really reducing the repeat attempts on a project to get it right the first time. So through this presentation, I'm going to touch on a few case studies and some examples. I have one now, and then I'll touch on some more later on. But one case study is us working with a client on a survey program. And the structure of the program was really based on surveying existing spaces to be converted to restaurant use. And the reason we were surveying them is that we didn't have as-built information. We needed accurate conditions. We needed information about equipment that's there. Could it be reused in the future? And so the survey program was really built on these existing spaces, and new spaces or new development spaces from developers were left out of the program. But what was interesting is we had the opportunity on one of these new development spaces. We had as-built that were provided to us. We went to survey one of those locations and then found out through measuring through the survey process that the actual square footage of the space was significantly less than what was drafted in the lease documents. So because of that survey, gave the opportunity to the franchisee renegotiate with the landlord, secure better terms for his rental agreement. So that right there paid for the cost of the survey right there. And then the greater cost savings was, of course, knowing that we had a measurement miss in the beginning of the project, we could plan for it. Had we not surveyed the space that we thought we had as-built for, that we're confident, we would have gone into construction with misinformation, incorrect plans, and would have significantly delayed the project and incur additional cost. So I highlight that because some of the misconceptions about survey is that if you have as-built, why would I need to survey if I have an as-built from someone else? Which ties right into me handing it off to Damien. He's going to highlight and move into the next section of the presentation.
Thanks, Shiron. Before I get going, Daryl Sankey, you asked, is the focus of this presentation on restaurants? I would say that the focus overall for this is around QSRs. However, like for the next portion of the presentation, we will be talking about surveying as a theme around QSR, or facility assessments around a theme as QSR, but the application of it and the themes around it can apply to anything from, new builds, commercial builds, big box stores, petrol stations, et cetera. So the principles are themed around QSR right now, but they apply to any type of construction or project. So Shiron just got done talking about a client that had some misconceptions about what surveying is or what it is not. I'm going to talk about a few other here on screen. These are ones that I've experienced personally since I've been the leader of this group, but I'm sure there's more misconceptions out there that either other AORs or other survey companies or anyone else who's done a facility conditions assessment has heard about. So one of them is scope complexity. There's often a bias that suggests that some AORs think that no one understands what they do. It's terribly complex and only they understand what they need. And that can be true to an extent. However, 50 to 60% of our team are trained architects or a master's degree of architecture, have worked in architecture firms. So they do understand the architecture design process. And coupling that with some collaboration prior to project kickoff, we can ensure that you get what you need as well as getting what the corporate construction team needs as well to be successful for the projects. Stagnant data, we're going to talk about that in the future. There's often a misconception that a survey is a snapshot in time and does no good to fill the gaps between the first survey and the follow-on survey. And we're going to talk about some methods on how you can get by that and making sure your data is comprehensive and continuous and not discrete. Redundant data, Shiron just briefed a case study where the leasee or the team thought we already have as-builts, why do we need to update? I'm going to show an example here during my portion of the presentation about why that might not always be the case and why you still need to verify the as-builts and the existing condition drawings that you have on hand. And capital is usually the biggest one, especially currently in the economy. They're too expensive for what we get. We don't have that in our budget. We could use that capital somewhere else. That may be true, and there certainly is opportunity cost, but we're going to talk about why that capital is important in a facility condition assessment up front, and the unanticipated costs and it can alleviate down the road. And if you have any other ones that I didn't list here, I'd encourage you to put them in the Q&A. And as I'm talking, I'll work my best to weave those in with a little bit of improv. Next, we'll be talking about how we're going to leverage our field data in the conditions assessments to tackle important decision-making. Whoop. I clicked the wrong slide there. There we go. So when we think about facility condition assessments, we're really thinking about three different buckets. We have visual data, spatial data, and descriptive data. And all the buckets provide valuable data that are collected, informed upon, and are used for intelligent action during the project lifecycle. Visual data includes virtual tours, still photos, 360 photos, basically anything you can see on your computer screen from a remote setting or your office that represents the visual space as you're viewing it or as you're experiencing it from your office. It gives a visual representation of the structure, the equipment, the facility, the site. Basically what the facility assessor is seeing on ground, you're seeing in your office or from your workspace. Spatial data, we typically include point clouds or existing conditions drawings with the spatial data. You can add discrete measurements that can be general, accurate, or extremely precise depending on the use case, but it gives you an actual representation, whether it's in 2D or 3D, of the space which you are assessing. And then finally, we have descriptive data, which is largely based around facility condition assessment reporting. This is always the most, in my opinion, the most important part of the facility conditions assessment because it's a blend of the subjective and the objective analysis while on site of the asset to provide actionable data for short-term and long-term initiatives. And the real art and the science of it is turning those subjective measurements or the subjective analysis into objective data to arm yourself with decision-making power. While all three buckets give a comprehensive picture of a specific point in time, they can be used in any combination depending on your use case or what you're trying to accomplish during the project lifecycle or the asset lifecycle. Jackie already talked about the Sevan at a high level, and this is, I'm not going to stay on this too long, but these are the specific services that we talk about specifically as it pertains to the survey and facility condition assessment team. There is a blend here of services and means and methods to gather data. What I would say is the ones that are annotated with a green box, the point clouds, the existing conditions drawings, the virtual tour, and the site assessments, those 20% of the services and means really take up about 80% of the surveys that our team accomplishes. And then there's some specialties or niches that go around that to support, again, based on the use case, based on the scope and what the project team needs to be successful. So I'm going to use this QSR here as an example of the three buckets. So here we have the visual component. This was taken with a 3D LiDAR scanner from Leica. So you can see it's a photo representation of the site from one of the corners of the building, showing the drive-through, the parking lot, and the veranda on which customers would sit. What's cool about this is it's taken in a 360 view. So even though you can't see that here, you can rotate this, and from the perspective of the camera, you can see everything from that viewpoint in all 360 degrees and on the Z-axis as well from top to bottom. This scanner sits on a tripod. It doesn't move, or the tripod doesn't move, and it rotates very slowly and gathers this photo in 360 degrees. And then we stitch it together on site to create a virtual tour. Behind that is the point cloud, which right here is the spatial data. So you can see it looks very similar to the actual 360 photo, but really what it is billions of points of light collected over the entire site that are then stitched together and meshed to create a three-dimensional model using the light that then stitches to the photo that I showed in the previous slide. What that allows you to do is see the photo, but within most of the platforms that your team will be using or an owner-operator would be using, is to take measurements, create asset tags, put in geolocations, and include different information into the point cloud that gives you not only spatial data, but begins to bring in the descriptive data that I'm talking about as well in the next slide. And then finally, what we end with is an existing conditions drawing based on that spatial data. So this can be a 2D or a three-dimensional model like I show here that's drawn in CAD or Revit or any other modeling software that you want. And it shows, this, in this case, the spatial elements in 3 dimensions. And it includes elevations, floor plans, the roof, reflective ceiling plans. And it couples it with the descriptive data that your team can collect on site, such as the quality of finishes, what kind of finishes there are, the material of the finishes, and other information about just general operations, like are the light bulbs working in the parking lot? Is the electrical system working? How many spots open do I have in our electrical panels? How much space, based on amperage is in the main distribution panel, et cetera. And combined, all of those three give you a pretty comprehensive view of what's on site and arm you with the data you need to make your decisions. Buildings are built with components, and each component has an expiration date. And with the spatial and visual data coupled with the descriptive data, it gives you the information on that building and all the fixed furniture and equipment components that allows you to put that data into a structured database to make highly informed, objective database decisions. I'm going to show you one more practical use case here. It's football season, and this is a point cloud of the Cincinnati Bengals field. Probably not the best representation, as they are 0-2 right now and look, objectively terrible with the data that we have. But nonetheless, there are obvious use cases for this, but for what I'm describing. But here's an example of a less obvious use case that still pertains to your QSR or your building. So what you're seeing here on screen is a combination of spatial and descriptive data. And looking there in the middle on the playing field, you can see it's a gradation heat map of the field of play. And in this case, they were using it to demonstrate the drainage of the field and look at different percentages of drainages. What they were using the drainage of the field to determine was, one, reduce maintenance and upkeep while ensuring the field is playable and is of a consistent quality. So you can see that there's pretty good consistency from the center of the field out to the sidelines, at least regarding elevation and gradation that supports drainage. This allows them to protect the field as an asset, as it's very expensive to replace grass or turf in the middle of a season. It also allows them to protect the players as an asset. Right before the first Monday Night Football game of the season, there were several predictions online that Aaron Rodgers was going to blow his knee out or burn an Achilles because of the wet field of play at MetLife Stadium. And sure enough, it came true, probably for some other reasons, but the wet field definitely helped with that. And there have been other notable injuries this year in the NFL alone, players who've suffered season-ending injuries. So obviously, the stadium owners and the NFL want to protect the product on the field to make it more viewable, more competitive, and more enjoyable. And they also want to protect the individual athletes in this case, because here in Denver, not many people want to watch Russell Wilson play, whether he's injured or not, let alone the second-string position players, because all the stars are injured because of field poor quality. So these elements that I described to you with the spatial, visual, and descriptive can all work independently, but they also work together to inform and support the other buckets and give you a comprehensive picture of your asset. So why do it? Why do a survey overall? Well, we want to lean on descriptive data with objective measurements while using visual and spatial data for support and confirmation of what you have on site to make your decisions. The goal of the assessment is to know the quantities and the qualities of everything that you have on site. How much of this, how many of that, how many of these issues are important and urgent as it relates to safety of the building or safety of your clients, ADA requirements in bathrooms and accessibility onto your site, or just how much revenue is being tied directly to the decisions you're about to make, and how is it going to impact revenue streams while on site. Identifying this information arms you to make better decisions for your asset and your business. And it also allows you to deploy capital in a way that creates the most value for you and has the greatest positive impact on your clients. The more structured information you have, the further away from the subjective and biased action you'll take to objective and informed action based on the data that's on site. And Shiron already described most of these in her portion, so I won't read them straight through, but you can see that we're reinforcing a very specific point here. So there's a lot going on this slide. I understand that, but here are the key takeaways. One of the important things for any survey or facility condition assessment is the reliability of the equipment and reliability of the person performing the assessment. It's very easy through training and repetition and job experience to calibrate and create a high quality deliverable for the person conducting the assessment, but reliability of equipment is also essential, especially for the visual and spatial elements, because those reduce subjectivity in the descriptive bucket when we're talking about existing conditions, drawings, or quality. So using the right equipment for the right need to support the right outcome is essential. So for example, if you only need a visual representation to assess finishes and general aesthetics and the quality of your aesthetics, a Matterport platform virtual tour and equipment, they're great. High quality photos, the equipment is relatively cheap, and there's a lot of Matterport providers out in the United States if all you need is visual. However, if you're installing new equipment, or you're moving a load-bearing wall, or you're expanding the dining room area to intake more customers, you're going to want precision with those measurements to prevent costly change orders and delays in the project. Matterport is not able to do that because of the nature of their equipment, but LiDAR equipment, such as the Leica BLK360 or the RTC360, are able to provide you that data when used correctly. So you can see up here on the chart that I have the variations over a 5 meter measurement or a 10-meter measurement of what the plus and minuses are in millimeters. One of the things that's coming out right now that Apple is pushing is the LiDAR in their iPhone 14 and the new iPhone 15 that's coming out. And there's several scientific papers out there that you can go grab and read about the quality of that LiDAR. But the bottom line is that 10 meters of measurement, you're getting plus or minus 300 millimeters of error in either direction, short or long. So it's not a reliable source if you're basing construction drawings on this. Conversely, the Leica RTC 360 can scan up to 130 meters, which is perfect for big box stores or large commercial buildings. And the error, when properly registered and using control points, is about 1.9 millimeters, which is very small and very precise. The final thing you'll need to consider is data ownership. Who owns your data and how long do they have that data and what are they doing with that data? For scanners like we use or platforms and whatnot that we use at Sevan, especially for using Leica or the existing condition drawings that we put together, you own that data, we deliver it to you. You can do with it what you want. You can arm it for future decisions. You can put it into cold storage and pour it out later. It's really up to you and how long you want to store it. When you use a specific provider like Matterport, where the platform is tied directly to the equipment, Matterport owns your data. You're never able to download the virtual tour portion of the data, although you can get some of their lower quality point clouds or automated 2D renderings that may or may not be precise. But that virtual tour component, you're paying them to host it in perpetuity, and you're allowing them to use that data however they want. And as soon as you don't want to pay for it anymore, they take it off their servers. And the next time you need a virtual tour from that point in time, you have to go back and redo the virtual tour. So, data ownership and what happens to the data is an important component of all of the services that I'm talking about here. And I'm going to give you one example use case here about that precision and why it's so important. So in this case, we have the sales floor of one of our big box store clients, and they wanted to upgrade the FF&E on their sales floor and bring newer, more efficient equipment in to help them with cost savings and increase their sales. The floor plans that they had on file were several years old, as were the design documents, and they did not know whether they were accurate or precise or if anything had moved. So here we went out on site and spent the afternoon scanning with one of our LiDAR scanners to provide that spatial data to help them reconcile their current floor and equipment layout. And as you can see, most of the FF&E is accurate. You can see over on the far right to the upper, the cashier stands, they're pretty accurate. They're a little bit smaller in reality than they're actually planned on the floor plan. There's some movable objects here that are not FF&E that are just bins for candy or vegetables or shoes, whatever it might be, that are not precise. But as you go over to the left and you look at some of their equipment that's actually fixed that they want to replace, the what's there in reality does not match the floor plan at all. So you can think that that might not matter based on your planning, but you can imagine how frustrating it would be and how impactful to the project lifecycle it would be if you bought a piece of equipment with a long lead time that was, say, 60 inches in length, and you only had space for 54 inches. It's the construction change orders, but there's probably a long lead time to manufacture that equipment in the first place. And so you're either altering your floor or the structure of your building, or you're going back and getting new equipment. And either way, that delays the efficiencies you can experience. The change orders are going to be costly, and it delays your project. So floor plan confirmation is a great use of the survey equipment and the survey services that we're talking about. So we'll talk next about current technology and trends. The next 3 slides present data and feedback from a wide range of AEC firms in the industry, how they use technology, whether it's like specific components of their workflow, or it's just generally how they arm and use technology within their business overall, and how they're using it to increase their speed and their output as well as their quality. So the point here is I'm not going to go through each one of these. I'm going to cycle through these and you can read the data points on your own. But the larger point is this, and that's technology is changing and it's evolving very quickly on a day-to-day basis. And in most cases, it's improving. And your ability to operate as the owner of a QSR or an AEC firm is heavily influenced by where you are on the technology curve of adoption for anyone that's seen that. what used to be excessive or expensive or often unnecessary in BIM and the common development environments is consistently becoming commonplace and essential. And it's leaving behind those firms or businesses that are resistant to new ways of managing project life cycles and asset life cycles and just managing their operations on a day-to-day basis, whether you're on the design side or the operation side. Now, it's not essential to be an innovator or an early adopter. We're not saying that you need to be out on the sidewalk getting the first iPhone 15 the day that it's released, but those only represent about 15% of users that adopt that new technology and accelerate it into their operations. And they're just excited about the technology, and they'll never know until much later in the curve if there's actually a solid product market fit or if it will ever be truly adopted. But once that technology crosses the chasm in the adoption curve and meets that product market fit, you'll want to be in the early majority that takes advantage of the technology and integrates it into your life cycle of operations or the design process and enjoy all the benefits of the operational efficiency it brings to your business. So next, I'm going to talk about a few examples of new technology that is still in the early adoption phases that not quite hit that early majority, but it's slowly getting there, both in facility conditions assessments, both in techniques and use cases, as well as operational platforms that increase the capability of QSR owners in this case, or any business owners, as well as the AEC firms supporting them. First is going to be a brief video demonstrating the power of artificial intelligence when paired with structured, spatial, and descriptive data as briefed by one of our technology partners.
Hi there, my name is Ross Goldenberg, and I'm co-founder of a company called Agentic. Agentic is a platform that uses AI to make business intelligence as easy as asking English language questions like you would to a human analyst. If you've ever used, say, ChatGPT, what you're about to see may look familiar, but Agentic's platform is able to draw together knowledge from across your organization, including your team's documents, your emails, spreadsheets, and even connect to your corporate systems, such as your accounting or your facilities management system, all in a secure environment. We've been working with Sevan to provide insights into the information captured in site surveys. In the example I'll show you, we've uploaded survey information that Sevan recently captured on equipment for a national retailer. Our AI has also cross-referenced that survey data with work orders and service records stored in the retailer's FM system. So let me share my screen, and we'll start by asking Agentic a simple question. And that question is, can you provide a table counting how many RTUs, or rooftop heating and cooling units, we have broken down by manufacturer? In this case, Agentic is searching the information contained in the surveys. It's semantically understanding what I'm asking and also what was surveyed to give me an answer. Let's get a little deeper here. Let's ask about warranties on those RTUs. So I'm going to ask if it can provide a table counting how many RTUs have warranties that expire in 2024 and break that down by state and site number. So you can see here, Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, etc. And this simple line of questioning might prove extremely valuable in, for instance, making sure that we schedule inspections or service to address any pending issues before those warranties expire. I'll give you one more example. This time, let's mix the survey data with the data stored in our FM system. So I'm going to ask Agentic, can you give me a list of RTUs that were damaged by hail since 2020? And let's break that down by state, site number, and warranty status. And there we go. Historically, as you can imagine, performing analyses like this means working with an analyst or programmer to source and then organize and analyze the data. It's a long process. Agentic's AI model, on the other hand, can automatically understand and interpret the relationship between different pieces of information spread across your organization and your systems. As you can see, I'm just scratching the surface of what can be done with our AI platform. Part of the magic here is how easy it is to unlock the power of all the information Sevan may help you collect in site surveys, transforming it from a snapshot used for a particular program to a long-term source of knowledge that can be used not only to analyze the past, but see around corners into the future. So if you're interested in chatting more and learning about what Agentic can do, reach out to the folks at Sevan and they'll connect us. Thanks for your time.
So one of the things I love about what Ross just demonstrated is that, gosh, it feels like 2 years ago or less, to gather all the data and analyze it and understand it and action it in the way that he was describing there, you had to have a very structured and clean database, maybe using SQL or one of the query languages for data. And then you had to have somebody on site or on your team as a data analyst that understood how to use SQL and write it to get the specific queries for which you were looking. And now with the ChatGPT movement and the AI that Ross just demonstrated, really all you need to have is the ability to write clear questions with specific purpose and use some critical thinking to type in there. And as long as your data is structured and you've planned ahead to keep that data structured and of high quality, you can ask it questions in normal language or normal parlance that still gets you the same output without having to be also fluent in SQL. So it really democratizes the data that's out there for operators, real estate owners, as well as AEC firms and facility conditions teams like myself or my team. One of the things that I'm very bullish on and very excited about is the use of UAVs or UASs or drones in the future of conditions assessments and surveying. Isaac Asimov said something about how today's science fiction is becoming tomorrow's science fact. I think I loosely quoted that the correct way. And I think drones and UAVs are an example of that. 10 years ago, it seemed like drones were something only the military or the government had access to. And now it seems like you can go to a Best Buy and anybody with a credit card and access to a drone license or an open public park or something like that near their house has access to this technology. And beyond that, survey and facility condition assessment teams or AEC firms are starting to use drones to provide visual and spatial data because these drones, the chassis, can be mounted with high quality cameras and LiDAR, which the technology for those is also increasing very quickly on a daily basis. Some of the use cases that I've seen for drones here in the last couple of years are to inspect the underside of massive bridges like the Verrazano Bridge in New York City or the Golden Gate Bridge, or even just local municipality bridges where you have to anchor your boat before. In previous, you had to either rappel off it or anchor your boat underneath and find a way to get up under to visually inspect. Now you can just use a drone to create a flight pattern around those bridges, get high fidelity visual data and high fidelity spatial data to give you exactly the information you need to assess repairs or maintenance or whatever it might be. I've seen people using these drones to collect spatial data and point clouds of skyscrapers, where you can imagine how hard it would be to do an existing conditions drawings or site verification of a building that's 20, 30, 40 stories high or higher. Now you can use a drone and map a flight path and gather all of those same point clouds that I showed you in that case study prior to ensure that the building is constructed as planned, or you can modify your existing conditions drawings as needed to what was actually constructed without putting anybody in harm's way. And perhaps the coolest instance that I've seen, because I'm a civil engineer and I like dams, we've seen a large amount of the industry moving towards drones with LiDAR scanning to inspect the faces of dams. And again, because these LiDAR technologies are so precise and can measure down to plus or minus 2 millimeters, they can actively scan the face of a dam, which would have taken days and days and days of people rappelling off the face of the dam to collect this data and analyze. Now you can just throw a drone up there with a high quality camera as well as a high quality LiDAR. And it might take you an hour or two to map the face of a dam. And using point clouds, you can determine the life of a crack or the crack growth over points of time and map, high danger or like very serious cracks on the face of the dam that might cause structural damage or structural integrity issues. And you can map it in real time with just the effort of having these drones and the information that they store. I've also seen drones with LiDAR being used to discover the footprints of civilizations in the Amazon underneath the jungle growth, which is really impressive. And then most recently, I've seen scientists, this was all over the news, especially with the Titan submersible incident back in May or June. But they used underwater drones to mesh a point cloud of the Titanic on the bottom of the ocean floor and use something like 70,000 scans and like 3 trillion points of light to create a very accurate and precise, not an existing condition drawing, but a point cloud of the Titanic sitting at the bottom floor. So the technology is progressing very quickly, and what you can do with it is very impressive in terms of, scientific study, structural integrity, or operations on your daily, on your business. AR and VR is continuing to progress rapidly and get adopted by many firms year over year. And it's really incredible how it blends the real and the future for AEC firms as well as owner-operators of any business. What's great about it is it connects team members in different locations, helps them to make decisions in real time about the future of their assets, whether it be in the design or the construction phases, or even in daily operations for like digital factories or manufacturing centers. What I really like about the future of it is you can take an existing condition drawing paired with that visual data that I was talking about earlier, but then your design team can overlay what new design features or structural features and put them straight into the model. And you can wear that AR or VR and see, yeah, if you have a creative brain or divergent thinking, you can kind of figure out what it's going to look like as you look at a 2D or 3D model. But putting on those glasses or those goggles and seeing what it's going to look like in 3 dimensions with all of the other surroundings incorporated and using some AI to put in some finishes or coloring really makes it impactful on helping people understand exactly what design decisions are going to look like, and then figured out what the downstream effects of putting something in right there are in terms of operations or future design functions for the building. And then finally, digital twins, digital factories, and smart buildings. What's great about these is that it uses a virtual representation of the site with real-time operation data, allowing people to adapt to the environment and faster response to identifying issues. I think it's pretty self-evident on how digital twins help during the design process or the construction process, both in reducing change orders or planning for friction points and removing those blockers during the actual refresh or the construction. But there are companies like Volvo or BMW that are massive manufacturing companies that have thousands of people working on the floor and lots of throughput on their inventory that then take those digital twins and turn them into digital factories. And they integrate Internet of Things sensors using API or different databases that allows them then to monitor and make operational decisions from Littleton, Colorado, managing a factory that's in Atlanta, Georgia, because they're able to take that spatial and visual data and move all around and link different operations, like maybe RPMs on a riveting machine or the temperature of a water cooling machine, whatever it might be that they need to monitor and identify issues ahead of time. You can blend the AEC or the components of the asset as terms of the building with your daily operational features that you need to be successful in your business. And those two things can move in parallel and support each other to ensure you get the most efficiency out of your building, your restaurants, your big box store, whatever it might be. So seeing this technology come out for these platforms where you can blend the design functions and the construction functions with daily operations decisions from managers and owner operators is really impressive. And then beyond that, the integration of the Internet of Things for smart buildings, whether it be, I say smart buildings, but like roads that have, volume count or pressure count or surface heat readings to, RPMs of machines is really going to make operations something it's going to be quite efficient and quite powerful going in the future. So I'll turn it back over to Shiron for some more case studies.
Yeah, thanks, Damien. I have a couple of case studies I'll highlight based on some of the information previously. One of them is how McDonald's has used the power of the surveys in a big part of a modernization program we partnered with. So an example is a significant number of modernizations we were doing in a market. It was really critical that we got up to scale quickly. And the key piece of the success of this program was kicking these projects off with good survey data in the beginning and the use of the 360 virtual tours. So because of the surveys and the 360 virtual tours, we actually had the ability to significantly reduce the planning and budgeting time for the projects. So we had the ability, maybe in a course of an afternoon, a franchisee and the construction team could get together, run through, say, 10 to 12 restaurant spaces virtually, looking at the 360 virtual tours, and scope all of them within an afternoon without having to step 1 foot into the restaurant. And so that alone was significant savings to the planning and the budgeting time, reducing the whole program from usually a 2 years planning and budgeting time, compressing that down into 6 months. So that was significant through the use of the virtual tours. And the second best return on investment through the surveys was, as a result of this program, the end result was that McDonald's at the end of the day saw a reduction in their change orders from 10% down to 3%. So for them, that was $21 million. That's huge. So sometimes we say about, oh, what's the value of a survey and good data on the front end? In the case of McDonald's, it's $21 million. And a lot of that went into understanding exactly the situations on these sites and exactly the problems you encounter during construction. So wanted to highlight that one as a great use of a survey within a development program. And then the final case study I'll present is how Starbucks utilizes surveys for their programs. So Starbucks, lots of different capital programs, new builds, remodels, and refreshes. And each of these spaces each have their own nuance due to geography, market, specific situations. And it's really critical, especially to get the material and the equipment specifications correct for doing takeoffs for this equipment. So as a result of the survey program, speed to market, getting into permitting quickly, and also understanding the exact conditions measurement of the spaces, proper material ordering, able to compress a construction schedule for what you can see, on the slide, which is really getting the restaurant spaces open quickly to new customers. I do appreciate the question earlier saying, is this highlighting mostly restaurant spaces? Our case studies, I do recognize, are from the restaurant space, but hopefully many of you listening can kind of adapt and say what's applicable here can also translate into so many of the other industries we work with. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jacqueline.
Great. Thanks, Shiron. Thanks, Damien. As everyone's on the call, you can kind of see we're really passionate about surveys. So, Shiron, Damien, and I all have different roles here at Sevan. I work with all of our new and existing clients on new initiatives and projects. Shiron's in charge of executing that work, and Damien's in charge of making sure that surveys are being performed on time. All things that really make programs and projects successful. And on the sales front, working with these clients, I always tell them you need to start with a survey. The ROI on a survey is it's unmeasurable. If you don't have the right data, you can't make these decisions. If they're corporate-owned stores, if they're franchise-owned stores, I know the upfront cost sometimes seems, we don't have it in our budget. We always see an ROI on a survey, and it might not be specific to that first project, but as Damien mentioned, you own the survey. So when you decide you want to upgrade the booths or paint the bathrooms and you're not sure what exactly is on site, you can pull your survey, your 3D virtual tour, and go back through and get that data. So Sevan, again, a program management firm with an in-house survey team. Really, we're here to help your projects. Now, it might not just be a survey project. It might be a remodel, a refresh, again, a drive-through initiative, rebranding, everything regarding those projects. Sevan can help you with our in-house team. Your business is making change, and our business is to make that easier. And because we have our own employees, the speed is where we really create value. With our surveys, one of the biggest things, the compliments that we get, is that we can get on site faster than anyone, and we can turn around a deliverable. Now, if that deliverable is going to your architect on record, or if we're the architect on record, or a different construction company, that's fine. We work alongside several partners, but being able to get that deliverable out within a 10-day frame is really what helps make a project successful. And we'll go on to the next slide. So how can Sevan help? Again, focusing really on the site data and better planning and A&E execution. So because we have an in-house staff, our surveyors are spread across the United States, and we have them at every state. So if you have a portfolio that has 50 in the West Coast, 30 in the East Coast, and 20 in the Southeast, because we have those employees spread across the United States, we're able to get on site faster and, again, turn around that deliverable. Again, we could be working alongside a different program manager. We can be your program manager, we're really an extension of your team, whether that be survey, architecture, and again, Shiron touched on the permitting. Having those accurate survey deliverables is going to speed up all of those processes, whether you're partnering with Sevan or someone else. But we are here, we can get on site fast, and we can help you build your execution plan. Again, you heard me mention an extension of your team. If you visit our website, you'll see we are you multiplied. That is how we view our business. That is how we help all of our clients' brands grow. We learn your culture, we insert ourselves into your team, and we help you get those deliverables out faster by creating speed and scale. Again, touching base on the survey, point cloud 3D scans with BIM, as-built drawings, the 360 virtual tours, and the facility site and equipment, assessments. I had a client call the other day and said, hey, explain survey. So some people might think survey as a as-built, and some people might think of it, I need to know what carpet is in my front of house. I need to know what kitchen equipment is there. We can customize a survey deliverable for each client. Not every survey is going to be the same, but knowing that we can get people on site fast is really where we create value. And again, having those deliverables be as accurate as they are. And again, just to re-highlight, where Sevan's focuses, we work with the QSR business, we do retail, we do government, healthcare, and within all of those, we do rebrandings, reimagings, new initiatives, self-checkout kiosks, facility insights. It could be an HVAC roof swap. I know the AI deliverable that we showed, really focusing in on equipment replacement as, lead times are bad, and having all that data available quickly so you can make faster decisions and make the right decisions. We also have a big focus on new construction and new builds. So it might not be a survey, but you might need an Alta survey, a topo survey, entitlements, which is something that Sevan can help you with as well. So again, thanks everyone so much for your time. We're super excited to be able to answer any questions that you might have. I know Kara's gonna kind of take a look at those, and we'll answer as many as we're able to. But any questions, follow up with us after. I'm happy to discuss deeper in what your projects might look like. If you have questions on, deep dive more on the difference between a LiDAR scan and Matterport and the benefits, we're happy to help and answer more questions. So thank you so much. And again, sorry, last slide. You only have 2 hands. Think of what you could do with Sevan. We love this tagline. Again, we're an extension of your team. Right now, a lot of people are looking for labor and good help. And our team having those resources available, whether it's a short-term project or a long-term project, is really where we can jump in and help. Kara, I will transfer it over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jacqueline. We will now turn to our Q&A portion. Our first question is for Shiron. What can I do in the planning stages of a survey to ensure that I take advantage of the survey time and eliminate or reduce the potential to have revisits and return trip fees?
Yeah, thanks, Kara. So the first thing in setting up a survey program is really getting together, whether that's the company, whatever the surveyor company is, to really understand what are the key objectives that you want to get out of the survey. What's the end result? As Jacqueline was saying, is it want to know more information about the equipment? Is it about measurements? Is it as-built of the space? What's the final, what's the end use supposed to be from the survey? So really dialing that in, understanding the objectives and the results, really important. And then as far as what can be done as far as reducing potential cost and getting the most cost-effective survey solution, best scenario would be if someone has a longer duration or time window that the surveys can get completed, a long lead time that's somewhat flexible. Of course, volume counts a lot. In most cases, longer lead times, being able to sequence those sites in a very cost-effective manner and a volume of sites is really going to win out as far as resulting in a lower cost for a survey program. Another piece of proper planning on the front end, making sure it's most bang for your buck, so to speak, on a survey, is engage the architects of record. Those architects are very critical in the process. You might not be thinking of all the snares that they're thinking about in the permitting stage. So understand what they need, the information they need from the space in order to make their jobs easier to go quicker. So bring them into the planning process. And then the other thing we can do is also making sure that if we have a survey program or if you launch one with someone else, stop at a moment after a pilot site. Maybe it's 5 or 10 sites. Look at the output of that data. Is it what you want to be getting out of it? Is there something that has to be tweaked or changed? And then once that pilot, it's an investment of time on the front end, but then you can really just scale up from there and go with the rest of the program. So those are just some recommendations.
Okay, great. Our next question is also for you, Shiron. For conditional assessments, how do you know the rating parameters, poor, fair, excellent, and how do you reduce subjectivity in the eyes of the individual surveyor?
Yeah. Like this question is one I posed of Damien before as well in our organization, figuring out how do we know that what I think is good or I think is poor, how do I know that someone stepping on the site thinks of it the same way? And so part of that is making it as data driven as possible. So in other words, if someone looks at a lot and it says, oh, the lot is dark, or the parking lot looks cracked, it's in poor condition, what's that based upon? And so I'm trying to quantify that with measurables up front. So working with the client, figuring out, okay, so for lighting, is it X% of the lights are out? That's going to be poor. That's going to be average. Something else is going to be excellent. So, or in the case of a parking lot, you can say in a given 100 square foot by 100 square foot space, this is how many linear feet of cracking we have. So trying to get the subjective and making it very data driven on the condition assessment is where you can really rely on that information, that when a surveyor says something like it's poor or it's average or fair or only has an estimated life left, you can really rely on that data better if you set parameters up in the beginning. So, thank you.
Great. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Our next question, it looks like, is for Damien. How flexible is the scope on surveys? Can I get some information now and other information later? Will I need to revisit? Damien, if you want to take that one.
Absolutely. Like I showed on that very first slide I presented within those 3 buckets of visual, spatial, and descriptive data, combinations of those buckets and the data collected within them, or like what type of data it is, can be collected at any during the project lifecycle or the asset lifecycle, depending on what the use case is. Now, there are some dependencies. For example, it's very, I wouldn't say impossible, but with 99% certainty, it would be very hard to do an existing condition drawing without going on site and getting spatial data or some visual data to build that existing condition drawings. But for almost everything else, if you need some data now and then you want to do existing conditions later, they can be mixed and matched in the project lifecycle in the way that makes the most decision to you. I would say it's almost always more economical at the programmatic level if you have a large swath of sites to collect as much information as possible in a single visit, because you never know what you might need, and revisits are expensive when really what you're paying for is time on site and collecting as much information on site. But again, it can be phased based on the needs of the client, especially during new builds. I would say with new builds, one of the benefits is that if it's properly planned with the GC or the construction management or the project management team, you can show up at different phases of the new build, such as foundation, structural, electrical, plumbing, or HVAC, or MEP, or roofing, whatever it might be. And as long as it's coordinated ahead of time, it's very economical to go out and not only get the visual data of the progress for punch walks or quality inspections, whatever it might be for logging the progress of the site, but also gathering all of that information that's behind the aesthetics or the sheathing or the finishes, such as the walls. Like once the walls go up, it's very, very, very hard and expensive to gather locations and runs of plumbing or electrical. You can typically get stuff above ceiling if the right type of ceiling is available, but again, that's expensive and time consuming to get it there versus just getting it and logging it while the ceiling is open and all of the elements of the structure are exposed. So again, spending a little bit of capital up front with some proper coordination during different phases of a new build, you can gather all of that information and you don't need it the next time you go to do a refresh or the next time you go to do a remodel. You already have it already from the point of inception at the construction point.
Okay, great. Our next question is also for you. How can surveying during a new build help me as an owner?
I think I accidentally answered that.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not your fault.
Got it.
I got ahead of myself and anticipated one of the questions. So again, phase surveys are useful to document different components of the building that are not easily accessible once construction is complete. I kind of talked about it already on the answer to the last question, but for new construction builds that we've done where we've collected spatial data and visual data during the phases, typically might be foundation, structural, mechanical HVAC, electrical and plumbing, finish, and then like site completion to give you a total package of what it looks like at turnkey. And again, it's just really, really important to collaborate and understand those schedules to make sure that a facility or a reality capture technician or a surveyor is on site to gather that information and pair it with as much scope as possible to collect that information and make it useful in the future life of the asset.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Damien. Our next question is for Jacqueline. Can you do a survey program for multiple franchisees at once?
Yes, we can. Yes, we love our franchisees. We work with several clients that we partner both on the corporate stores and the franchisees. So really what we'll do is we'll just work with them to get an idea of their portfolio. We'll put together a really nice schedule using our technology that we do in-house. And we'll bill, we can bill the franchisees, we can schedule with them separately and turn over deliverables to them or whoever they're working with if it's not Sevan on the project side. So yeah, absolutely. If anyone has questions on that, just send us an email and I'd be happy to talk to any of your partners or franchisees that are looking to do an upgrade that needs to have their portfolio looked at. But yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. And just to be conscious of everyone's time, we just have one more question back to you, Damien. What is the difference between a survey and facility assessments?
It's a nuanced question. That's not simple. I would say a facility condition assessment is a type of survey, but a survey doesn't always include a facility condition assessment. It's like a circle within a circle. If you recall that one of those first slides that I showed, there are different means and methods and different deliverables that all fall under the umbrella of a survey or a data gathering effort. And so a facility condition assessment typically falls within that descriptive data of, like Shiron was talking about, rating something as good, fair, or poor, or objectively rating it, or trying to objectively rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 for furnishes, for quality of aesthetics, for any damage within the structure. And it doesn't necessarily involve any visual or spatial data. But anytime you send somebody out on site or ask somebody to go collect structured data for you to make decisions, the effort of collecting that data itself is what I would call a survey. And a facility condition assessment is just one aspect of that that can be combined with many other aspects within that survey.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, and that is all the time that we have today. The team from Sevan will work to answer the other questions that came in individually. Many thanks to Sevan Multi-Site Solutions for making this program possible, to our audience for attending, and of course, Jacqueline, Shiron, and Damien for sharing these great insights today. As we mentioned, a recording of the program will be linked on QSRmagazine.com, or you can use today's login link to view it at any time. So thank you again, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.